Welcome to the One Championship Empower Preview Show, a whole card stacked with female talent, the quarterfinals of the Atomweight World Grand Prix, and the Strawweight title on the line in our main event as Zhang Jingnang defends the title against the Jiu-Jitsu World Champion, Michelle Nicolini. Hello everybody and welcome to the preview show. So today I'm focusing on the main card of the One Championship Empower Preview Show coming up. It's an entire card stacked with female talent. We've got an Atomweight Grand Prix on the line, the quarterfinals, which is 8 amazing contenders that are really gonna push each other and give us 4 winners out of that, which will move on to the next round of the Grand Prix. We've also got the Strawweight title on the line in the main event, which is a really exciting matchup. I'm sure you're going to be looking forward to that one. Kicking off the card, though, we have 2 debutants on the card. We have Cristina Morales of Spain taking on kickboxing pound for pound great Anissa Meksen. This is just a great way of opening this main card. 2 atomweight kickboxers, both bringing in great records. Cristina Morales at 47-7 with 9 knockouts. Anissa Meksen, of course, coming in with an advantage here, 100 wins and 5 losses with 32 knockouts. Everybody's excited to see Anissa Meksen make a one debut, but of course, she's got to get through Cristina Morales, who does bring a lot of experience and will be wanting to make the most of this debut as well. That is the first fight on the main card. Then we move on to the first of the 4 Atomweight Grand Prix fights. Okay, and we are kicking off with Itsuki Hirata. She is a very explosive, very powerful judoka. She's 4-0 in her career, had every single one of her fights in one championship, and is just an absolute pleasure to watch. You know, she's enjoying herself when she's in there. She locks up with her opponents and is able to muscle and move them around with excellent upper body control. And, you know, oftentimes she'll control people's upper body, shoulders, great scarf hold position here against Crowley. And she's just able to hold her here and just hit her until the referee's had enough of seeing it. You know, she does work submissions off the upper body as well. But the main thing you'll see in her fights is, first of all, is her aggression. And second of all, is her ability to just control someone's upper body and start isolating arms. I mean, look at this Americana here. Sabanel was trying to get out of this, but just the way that Hirata distributes her weight to keep her on the canvas, so she's twisting that arm in the opposite direction it's supposed to go. You can see as she steps over her head there, she cranks the arm in the opposite direction. A really nice submission, really strong submission. And you know, Hirata's welcoming Elise Anderson to One Championship. It's going to be a very explosive one, given the fact that Elise Anderson likes to move forward as well. I mean, you can imagine Hirata and Elise Anderson trying to occupy the same space in the circle. Hirata loves to crowd people with overhands, and then she slips into underhooks. And this finish here, this beautiful armbar finish, where she traps her opponent's head, isolating the arm. And you can see the pressure on her opponent's head as well. Not only is her head trapped, but there's also pressure on her neck, and she's facing the opposite way of the isolated arm, which she, you know, clearly can't defend. A very, very dangerous judoka and a real tough test for Elise Anderson, who's coming in with a lot of expectations. Elise is coming in with a record of 5-1, 2 stoppages and 1 triangle, only 1 split decision loss. And, you know, just a really good addition to this Atomweight Grand Prix. She's going to be aggressive. She's going to push forward. She's going to see where the wrestling and grappling game is of Hirata. And I expect these two to, really not let go of one another until the fight's over. I think it's going to be a very fast-paced one. I think Hirata's coming in with high expectations of herself, and I think she's expecting Elise Anderson to walk into some hip tosses and throws and trips, and she'll be able to take control on the ground and start working those upper body locks. But great to see Elise Anderson coming in as well. You know, experience on her side as well, equaling or greater than her opponent. And you know, very tough, durable, high work rate, great knees in the clinch. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Moving on to the next one, Meng Bo. I mean, she more experience, 17-5 is Meng Bo's record. 6 stoppages and 5 submissions, a mixture of rear naked chokes and arm bars. She's on a 7-fight win streak, and it seems to me at this point in her career that she's turned a corner. She's had stoppages before in her career, but the fights that she's had in One Championship since she's signed with the organization have just been explosive, fantastic to watch. Aggressive, right hand focused. I mean, she keeps cracking her opponents with this right hand over and over again, and Santos was able to withstand a lot of these shots. The next two opponents that you're going to see were not able to, and it's very rare that you see this kind of knockout power in these lighter weight classes. I mean, like, she knocks her opponents basically so they don't know where they are. I mean, you can see this shot here right on the chin. She actually, what's beautiful about this, she actually parries the lead hand down as well. As this shot's coming out, you can see her opponent fires that lead hand out and she slaps it down out the way and then fires straight to the chin. Real clean shot that is. And her opponent drops, and then the following shot, she doesn't even know it's coming. That's how hard the first shot landed. And same with the next one. Beautiful about the next one is that it's a counter shot as her opponent was rushing forward. She jogged back a couple of times and she plants that back foot. Watch this backwards movement. So her opponent's pushing forward. She jogs back, plants her back foot, and then fires that right hand onto the chin. And again, same thing. Her opponent drops to the canvas and doesn't know what day of the week it is. I don't know whether there's anybody else in this Grand Prix that's got that kind of power. And I think that's a really exciting element to bring to the table, especially because she's fighting Ritu Phogat, who's less experienced, but equally as aggressive. And she brings a wrestling game, which is problematic for everybody in this tournament. Even though she doesn't have the MMA experience to match some of these fighters, her tenacity, her control, her ability to drag and pull and upset her opponent's balance. And whenever she feels like she's got enough control to let go with one hand, she immediately starts hitting. It's a very aggressive game. She constantly is working onto the legs, stuck to her opponent, is able to lift and twist and turn them to the canvas, and then works to dominant positions. And all this time while the opponent's trying to work through this, they're just exhausted, and it gets easier and easier for Phogat to take them down and ground them and control them. And then she starts working up to the upper body to isolate those limbs, and then that's where the ground and pound comes. But the work rate is intense, and the difference between these two, I think, is that Meng Bo will want to try and keep this one on the feet and try and pick that right hand. So it's going to be on Phogat to try and close this distance and get the fight to the floor, where she can take this crucifix position and nullify that right hand power that Meng Bo brings to the table. Not as much experience as Meng Bo, but just as much capacity to win. Especially given the fact that she's such a strong wrestler. And Meng Bo, she does step hard on that lead leg to throw the right hand because she throws it with such power. If Ritu Phogat can manage the distance between the two and maybe not be so overly aggressive, or even just back her up with a flurry of strikes and force her into the fence. I mean, this is about a 45-second flurry here where she never stops landing. She's landing about 3 punches a second. That work rate's very similar on the feet as well. She might be able to push Meng Bo back and be able to crowd her and take her down up against the fence. But the risk of that, of course, is that counter right hand that we saw from Meng Bo. So that's going to be a real interesting test between predominantly a wrestler, I would say, that's got great ground and pound, and he's never interested in submissions, which is also something worth noting. She's always attacking with strikes. And Meng Bo, who I would say is the biggest puncher in the tournament. The next fight is a rematch. A really interesting first fight. So I've got a few highlights of the first fight. I'm just going to talk you through it. So Rassohyna coming into this fight, she was 12-4 was her record with 11 submissions, 10 of which are first round arm bars. And I think she was expecting if she could get this fight to the floor, she'd be able to control Stamp and get that arm bar. But in actuality, Stamp did an excellent job here. She shows good grappling instincts. I mean, she's really a natural on the floor. And then, once she's started to pass the guard, she's using those knees to the head and the elbows that she's honed in her Muay Thai game. But, being able to work around Rassohyna like this and take her back and threaten her neck, even though she wasn't able to finish her, Rassohyna is coming into this as a grappler in mixed martial arts, and Stamp is coming into this as a Thai boxer, transferring over. And has shown really amazing grappling skills. I mean, she had to defend some arm bars in the first round. She had to defend some takedowns in the first, second, and third round, but was able to most of the time turn it on her opponent and start to threaten. And Stamp didn't. Here's a great arm bar escape here. Stamp was able to threaten over and over again, but she did have to work through a couple of submissions. But I would say quite obviously that she was in control of the majority of the fight. A great elbow there on the break. Showing a Muay Thai striking, but without overextending herself and getting taken down so easily, and then being able to reverse it and take the back of her opponent. And also, obviously, armbar escapes, knowing full well if you're coming in to take someone take on someone that's got 10 first-round armbar finishes. You've got to make sure you're on point with that. But in the last minute of the last round, Rassohyna was able to take Stamp to the floor, and Stamp, not wanting to finish in a bad position, which is admirable, she scrambled and turned into a guillotine, and Rassohyna wrapped it up and was able to, as Stamp was drifting across to try and pass, she was able to triangle her legs in kind of a reverse half guard situation. But the control that she had on her neck was so tight that she was able to get the tap, I think, 7 seconds before the end of the round. So this is an immediate rematch, which I'm sure that Stamp was demanding after this fight. She was protesting the submission and the tap and a few things, but it looked like a tap to me, and it looked like a really tight guillotine to me. So that as a rematch is going to be absolutely fascinating. I think Stamp's going to know Rassohyna much better. She's going to be far more respectful of a ground game. Maybe not even tangle there too much. Maybe keep the fight on the feet a bit more this time around, because she was defending a lot of those takedowns. I think if she'd have defended that last one, she would have won the fight. And Rassohyna, she was a few times she had an arm of Stamp, and she will watch those attempts back and think to herself, I can finish that the next time around. An immediate rematch is always very interesting for me, and I think this one's going to be a really exciting one. And then we're moving on to the last of the 4 of the atomweight World Grand Prix. Denise Zamboanga, 8-0, one of 2 of the fighters in this tournament that is undefeated. She's got a real stiff test in front of her with Sohee Ham. Now, Denise is very explosive. She's got great takedown defense. Generally, she wants to keep the fight in boxing range where she can walk her opponent down. She will defend takedowns and find herself in top position, and she will ground and pound if she feels it's the safe thing to do. But here you can see against Yamaguchi, she kept her backed up against the fence. She stuffed her takedowns and kept boxing her face. And great hands, very aggressive. A very kind of come forward style. She's very happy to engage in a fight. The danger here is that she's fighting another person that's going to keep doing that, keep level changing, keep shooting, keep trying to get this fight to the floor. Sohee Ham's a veteran of the game. She's the most experienced fighter in this tournament, but she's very much a wrestler. Now, this was good to see in Zamboanga's last fight. She shows a really strong tie clinch here. She looks very strong for the weight class, I will say that. But immediately here, she goes into takedown defense against the ropes and is able to reverse it, and then starts working for a takedown of her own. And this was a small insight into her grappling. We know she's got a good top game, but usually using it for ground and pound. Now, I don't think it's necessarily the right thing to do to engage in the grappling with Sohee Ham, but if she doesn't have a choice, and Sohee Ham's really working hard for the takedown, it might make more sense to reverse it. And this Americana here was really nice, where she was able to pressure her opponent away from her and isolate the arm and get the submission. A real good submission that adds on to a good top game, a good ground and pound game. But as I said, Sohee Ham, she's coming in with the most experience in this tournament. She's got experience in the biggest organizations around the world. She's very durable. 23-8 is her record. 4 TKOs and 3 submissions, 16 decisions. The reason that's a good thing here is because experience will pay off against someone that's 8-0. And Sohee Ham's been a professional for 10 years longer than Denise. So there's a lot of experience. There's a lot of time on the mats, a lot of time training and learning and understanding the craft. She's a veteran of the game. And now she's in one championship. She's got a real good opportunity to get a belt around her waist before maybe, hanging up her gloves. I think she's still got a good few fights in her yet. But, she's got to be thinking about getting a championship. That's what she wants here. And this Grand Prix gets her very, very close, if not within exact striking distance of the title. So it's a very exciting time to see Sohee Ham in one championship. And I think that as far as an atomweight Grand Prix, we have 4 matchups there. Every single one of them is going to be electric. Hirata and Anderson both occupy the same space in the cage. They both want to push forward and back each other up. Meng Bo's got a wicked right hand, both moving forward and moving back. Ritu Phogat only moves forward, and once she's got her hands on you, she'll drag you to the floor and she'll maul you until she's got a crucifix and then hit you until the referee jumps in and saves you. Then we have the rematch between Rassohyna and Stamp Fairtex, both coming in with a lot to prove, and then Zamboanga welcoming the veteran Sohee Ham into the one circle. And the last fight of the night is the one strawweight championship. We have Zhang Jingnan defending 15-2 is a record, 10 TKOs. She's taking on Michelle Nicolini, who is a 13-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. So let's take a quick look first at the challenger to the title. So no surprise here, Michelle Nicolini. She wants to get the fight to the floor. She wants to clamp onto her opponent and basically control their hips with her legs, whether that's from mount or from back. And she's like a boa constrictor. Once she's wrapped around you, there's really no getting away from her. She's got very high level submissions, beautiful sweep here where she elevates her opponent and then rolls over, and before taking top position, drops off to an armbar, which is very much a Ronda Rousey style finish. Just there, you can see the pain on her opponent's face. A very, very slick grappler who's gotten better and better at applying her jiu-jitsu within mixed martial arts. And, in this fight, she's got someone that's going to come crashing forward, someone that is very aggressive and someone that might allow her to level change underneath and ground her. And, the development of her grappling in mixed martial arts has led to a much more dominant striking game as well. Being able to force people to turn their back with strikes and then start sinking in their chokes. Lovely finish there, rear naked choke again. A very consistent submission in her game. And, this is definitely the biggest win on her record, the fight that got her a title shot. The win over Angela Lee, where she was able to, just dominate in the grappling range. Wasn't able to get the finish, but that's a credit to Angela Lee. Nicolini was able to isolate arms, pin her down, control her from top position, work from mount to back to side control, and constantly strike. I mean, it was really a jiu-jitsu clinic. There were a lot of beautiful sweeps in it as well. I mean, if you're a fan of jiu-jitsu in mixed martial arts, it's definitely a fight that's worth watching. But the interesting thing here is that for as aggressive as Zhang Jingnan is, she's also quite measured in her attack. She does look quite reckless at times, but she's also quite cautious of overcommitting until her opponent seems to be hurt or tired. She's got a great side kick that she uses as well, which I think will be really useful in this fight. But for the most part, the general feeling when you watch her fights is that she throws at least double what her opponent throws. I mean, she is like a tidal wave coming forward. She comes crashing and just outdoes them with output. Pours the pressure on, pours the power on, keeps the fight standing as much as possible, and lands shots in every target. And you can see the damage that she did here to Tiffany's face. Defending takedowns, keeping the fight standing, and throwing venom in every shot. And I think in this fight she knows what she's up against. She's got someone that's going to be trying to close distance, and this boxing range is going to be useful. If she can defend a couple of the takedowns of Nicolini and keep this fight on the feet, she could very much force her into this kind of fight where she's backed up against the fence, taking these big shots to the body. Front kicks, side kicks. She lands big punches to the body as well. And there's something else you have to bear in mind with Zhang Jingnan. She's a 5-round fighter. She suits championship fights. This fight against Angela Lee was, it was a great performance by Angela Lee in the beginning. She was the atomweight champion moving up to challenge the strawweight belt. But she just wasn't able to muster it the first attempt. Even though having a couple of good first rounds, it wasn't enough to get her ahead of Zhang Jingnan enough to slow her down. And then, 5th round, she's still there, still working at the same work rate, still throwing the same punches and shots with the same kind of venom. And Angela Lee just wasn't able to keep up with it in that 5th round. It was a really strong performance from Zhang Jingnan, and she was tested, and that's what we needed to see in that fight. And I think she'll be tested in this fight in a different way. If you think what Nicolini was able to do to Angela Lee, you've got to think if this fight hits the floor, then Nicolini's a far greater challenge for the defending champion than Angela Lee is. But having said that, if Nicolini's forced to strike, then those body shots, you can only take those for a certain amount of time before you stop thinking about jiu-jitsu and start thinking about going home. It's really, really exciting champion to be defending her belt. a fantastic card of fights. Starting off with an atomweight kickboxing match, then we go into the atomweight mixed martial arts World Grand Prix with 4 amazing matchups, and then the strawweight champion defending her belt in the main event. Make sure you check this out. One Championship Empower, September 3rd, Friday. Make sure you watch.